And we start in South Africa, where the country has extended its latest population in the 2022 census, which many say is the most important census in the country since South Africa emerged from apartheid rule nearly 28 years ago. Statistics South Africa conducts major censuses on the country's population every 10 years, but the census was postponed last year due to COVID-19. This year, Statistics SA took a different approach to get the data it needs by extending the census to make sure it counts everybody. Joining us on Breakfast Central this week or today is Statistician General Risenga Maluleke to tell us more on this. Many thanks for joining, Mr. Maluleke. Let's start briefly with the basics. Looking at the census. Why is it so important, and why is this year even more important?
Firstly, let me greet both of you, Olushi and Elizabeth, and indeed, let me greet the viewers out there in our home in Nigeria. Let me mention why a census becomes a lot more critical. It is because any country needs at any given moment where its citizens live and play. And for that reason, we need to know the circumstances as we talk about the population and housing census. We need to know the circumstances under which they live in terms of housing. We need to know how many people are in a household. We need to know the kind of, the number of children that are there so that we can plan for future schools. We need to know how many elderly in terms of providing for their care. We need to plan for future clinics. But we also need to know the number of children born of a mother in her lifetime, live births, so that we can be in a better position to position a country for future population expansions. And as such, it helps not only government, but it also helps business people who want to start new initiatives to know the neighborhood, who earns, not who, what are the earning patterns in a particular neighborhood. And finally, it also assists members of the public to hold those that they elect into public office accountable, because they can engage about what are the challenges they have in their neighborhood or what they don't have.
Right. Now, South Africa's census this year has been very different. Tell us a bit more about the changes and why you think it's better to go about it this way.
Firstly, is that we were supposed to conduct this census last year in 2021, as we conduct our population every 10 years. And there was an anomaly in 1996 in that we needed it just as we entered democracy as South Africa. But after that, we had one in 2001, 2011, and in 2021, we're supposed to have one. However, because of the disruptions of COVID, our battery of tests that we had to put in place could not be effected to the fullest. And as of now, we can't delay the country anymore to wait for 2032 or 2031. We can't delay. The country needs information, especially emerging from a devastating effect of COVID-19, which has affected any other nation. But indeed, we were also affected as a country. So the nation needs to have information through which we can base our plans for the future. Let me mention both Olushi and Liz that when we conduct a census, we count everyone who is within the borders of South Africa. It is very critical to understand that every chief statistician in a country gets asked this question: who are you going to count? You don't count only the citizens. You count everyone who is within the borders of your country with a reference night. And indeed, our reference night is that of the 2nd of February, waking up into the 3rd of February, 2022.
Right. Now, Maluleke, we do understand that this year's census is a little bit different in terms of the use of the internet or technology, as it were. And online registration commenced, and we understand it has been closed. But why did you choose to extend the census, knowing that the new date now has been moved to the 20th of March?
I know that you will, at some stage, even in Nigeria, be going through into your census. And it's critical that I raise this issue. And I know as Statistics South Africa, we are expecting to receive the National Population Commission of Nigeria's Honorable Chairman, Mr. Kwara Issa and Nasser Issa. And let me mention that as you plan, it's critical that we understand the space we find ourselves in as nations. One is we have run previous censuses on the basis of paper. And every census in every country is a logistical nightmare. In our case, having been faced with COVID-19, we have already gone through 3 waves of COVID-19 as a country. It was becoming very, very difficult to get contact between our field workers and members of the public. And as such, we had to find innovative ways of deploying technology in that members of the public could either register to be enumerated or to self-enumerate or to count themselves online, or alternatively, they could have our field workers calling them on the phone and while they are capturing information with a tablet and a smart gadget from the other side. But let me mention that we have had lower numbers of registration in the country, and there are so many reasons that attribute to that. We were expecting to register in the region of far more than 16 million households. We only registered about 455,000 households, which is actually far much lower. So what we have decided now is to deploy our field team. Luckily, the state of alertness in terms of restrictions around COVID-19 have been relaxed in our country as we have been able to avert the 4th wave. And I think as we see worldwide that COVID-19 is actually at its lowest now in terms of infections. And as such, we are able to deploy our field team. But that required that we extend the period through which we should be able to enumerate. We are aware of other nations. The United States just came out, United States of America came out of a census just before we were hit by COVID-19. The United Kingdom conducted their census during COVID-19, but in Africa, Cabo Verde, as well as Uganda, conducted their census. And we will remember that in not Uganda, Ghana. And indeed,
lost Risenga Maluleke, but he was talking about the census in South Africa and with the fact that it has been postponed to the 20th of March. Now, we do understand that a lot of people in South Africa are quite concerned, especially the LGBTQ plus community, who are quite concerned about the questionnaire that has been used in previous years' population census. And right now, they're wondering if the same set of questionnaire is going to be used or a different adaptation is being implemented at this point in time.